Navigating the Digital Jungle with Sue Atkins and friends.
Welcome to Navigating the Digital Jungle with Sue Atkins and friends, with me, Sue Atkins, parenting author and broadcaster, and I'm delighted to be here today with Angeline Corvaglia, creator of the Data Girl and Friends, empowering young minds with online safety and AI literacy videos, games and educational materials, and with Favill Gill, education manager for YGAM, a national charity whose sole purpose is to inform, educate and safeguard young people against gaming and gambling harm. We're here today to guide you through the digital jungle. And we're diving into a critical and sensitive topic today: digital dangers, boys, gaming, and the allure of online porn. And this episode is dedicated to all the parents out there who are concerned about their sons' online activities and want to ensure their safety and their well-being. Now, as we all know, the internet offers a world of information and entertainment, but it also harbours significant risks, particularly to young boys. Today, we're going to focus on two major areas of concern: gaming and online porn, because both of them have become deeply ingrained in the digital experience of many young males. And both of those things carry potential dangers that parents need to be aware of. So let's start with gaming. Video games have evolved dramatically from the simple pixelated games of the past, because today's games are immersive, interactive, and often involve social components that can draw kids in for hours on end. And while gaming can offer really positive experiences, such as developing strategic thinking and teamwork, there are also some downsides. Joining us today is Favill Gill, Education Manager for YGAM, a national charity whose sole purpose and social purpose is to inform, educate and safeguard young people against gaming and gambling harm. And the charity was established in 2014 as a result of the lived experience of the founders. After suffering for over 25 years with a gambling addiction, Alan Lockhart died by suicide in 2010 at the age of 40. And his mother Anne, a former teacher, founded the charity with her husband Keith and Lee Willows. Together, they were determined to use education as a tool to raise awareness and help safeguard future generations against gaming and gambling harms. And Anne, the founder, has received an NHS National Award for Excellence in Public Health and Wellbeing for work really well done regards gambling harms. As we know, gaming has become a really widespread form of entertainment for people of all ages. However, the intensity of gaming, especially among young people, has raised concerns about its impact on mental health. And according to a report by Young Minds, gaming can provide a sense of belonging, relaxation and connection, helping young people find a community of like-minded individuals and a sense of achievement. But excessive gaming has been linked to social withdrawal and a neglect of real-life relationships, which really can contribute to social isolation and anxiety. So, without further ado, let's get stuck in. So I'm delighted you're here to join us today. And let's kick off with, how are gaming and gambling interconnected? And what similarities should parents be aware of?
Well, the lines are increasingly blurred between gaming and gambling, as there are mechanisms within games that simulate gambling, as well as encouraging gambling behaviours through things like microtransactions. So video games and gambling both use intermittent reward systems to keep players engaged, and the uncertainty of rewards can be really addictive. So many games and gambling activities are actively designed to create this sense of almost winning, which encourages people to keep playing. Some video game elements like loot boxes aren't regulated as strictly as traditional gambling, which means that children are exposed to gambling-like experiences without the right protections. And both industries use targeted advertising, often highlighting big wins or rare items to entice users. So they might use popular influencers in gaming and sports to endorse games and gambling sites just to make themselves appear more attractive to younger audience. So there's a great deal of crossover between the two industries and lots to watch out for.
Lord, that's a bit scary, isn't it? So explain a bit more then for me, because I don't game, I don't understand. What is a loot box? How do they function? And explain them a bit more for us.
Sure, yeah. So loot boxes are virtual items, so they can be purchased in games using either real money or in-game currency. Once bought and opened, whoever's bought them finds a randomized selection of items that customize or alter the experience of the game. So the user doesn't receive any physical objects in the offline world. The items could be skins. Now that's changing the appearance of their character. It could be new weapons or tools that improve the character's ability, or it might be access to a new character in things like FIFA or FC24 as it's now called. But basically, a loot box can describe any in-game purchase with a chance-based outcome. And there's a great deal of debate around loot boxes online. You only have to type it into a search engine to see all of the articles discussing their potential for harm.
Could participation in certain types of video games increase the likelihood of developing gambling habits in children and teenagers? Is there an age balance around this or explanations that parents can find?
So things like loot boxes mimic the thrill of gambling by using the element of chance. Now, this can lead to similar psychological responses as gambling, such as excitement, anticipation. If a game contains gambling-like mechanisms, it's normalizing those behaviors for our young people. So spending real money on loot boxes can normalize the act of spending money for uncertain rewards, which is a core characteristic of gambling. Another issue that it allows them to familiarize themselves with the types of gambling products out there that they usually would be restricted to adults or 18 years or older. And by exposing them to these sorts of gambling concepts and mechanisms at a young age, it can desensitize children to the risks and the consequences of gambling. And research has shown that children and teenagers might use gaming and gambling like features as a way to cope with stress or anxiety or other emotional issues. And this can lead to addictive behaviors.
Psychological effects do in-game purchases and loot boxes have on young players?
So we see similarities in individuals suffering from gambling harm with those young people struggling to manage their loot box purchases. So the mechanics of loot boxes can encourage risk-taking and other impulsive behavior. So players might spend money without fully considering the consequences. Young players might develop an emotional attachment to virtual items and overvalue them, which can lead to then these big emotional responses to gains or losses. And when young people fail to get the items they want, it can lead to feelings of frustration and disappointment, which may affect their overall mood and well-being. And with anyone suffering, there are both short-term and long-term effects on an individual's mental health. So a person can become quite secretive, maybe begin lying about their spending habits. And this can lead the person to become quite isolated, and they might struggle to make and maintain relationships as a result, but now and as well in the future. So you can see how quickly it could have quite a negative impact on a young person's mental health.
What I'm thinking the whole time as you're talking, Favill, is the impact of AI on all of this, because a lot of these games have AI built in. And as we've spoken a number of times, AI is very good at analyzing data and kind of getting to know the players, actually offering things specifically personalized, realizing what they want, what they're going to want more. I think that that really plays into how addictive this can be, because the games are also learning from the characters' behaviors, right? From AI. And this is obviously something new compared to when we had games. I mean, the first online games that wasn't nearly as sophisticated. It's really interesting that how that plays, and sad how how much of an impact that can have on children and youth who just aren't equipped for that kind of thing.
Yeah, particularly when you look around things like advertising and the fact that the speed at which those adverts can be targeted specifically for that young person in a way that really, really appeals to them. It is quite scary just how much they're being exposed to and how normalized it makes it all. That's yeah. And AI will have a huge impact on that.
So parents, what sort of age should our children doing this? And what should parents look out for to protect them perhaps and delay them being allowed to play some of these games?
I think the key thing with parental control, it all comes down to talking to that young person and also just being aware of what they're playing. So knowing about game guides, knowing about what sort of things come up within the game. So we actually have a dedicated parent hub on our website, which parents can go and have a look at. It's got game guides, it's got safety checklists, it's got parental control apps that you can look into. And it's just about knowing whether that game has an in-game purchase. It has things like microtransactions and making sure that that young person knows the potential risks. So by having these really open conversations with our young people, they then can come and talk to you if they feel like maybe their behaviour is becoming problematic.
Gosh, that's interesting, isn't it? I mean, parents themselves, get involved in gaming too. And I suppose that sort of role modelling can pass down to the children, can't it? If they see their adults or their parents doing that kind of thing.
Definitely, parents are a huge, huge influence. And in fact, when we look at gambling, in fact, I think it's about 70% of those young people that are gambling are with their parents the first time they do. So it is, a lot through that modelling and through learning.
Oh my goodness. On video, you just saw my face go, 70%? Oh my goodness, that's quite high. Parents often forget that they are modelling behaviour. And you do it all in great innocence, but this is part of the conversation that we have on this podcast, is to get people thinking. So perhaps they can just make a small change sometimes that might make a big difference. So are there specific genres of video games that are more likely to include gambling elements?
So you've got sort of freemium and gacha games. So they're free to play, but they heavily rely on the in-game purchases. So popular games in sports like FIFA and Madden. So these modes allow players to build teams by purchasing packs of player cards. So it's basically any game that includes these in-game purchases. Definitely that's more of the gambling element. Games like Counter-Strike include cases that contain randomized skins for weapons. So players can buy keys to open these cases, creating a gambling-like experience. And many casual games, especially on mobile platforms, simulate casino environments. So they've got slots, poker, other gambling activities. And these games often encouraged in-game spending to continue playing or to enhance the experience. And lots of games glamorize the use of casinos and include card games and other normalized methods of gambling.
Oh, I'm feeling overwhelmed and a bit depressed. So listen, what warning signs then might indicate a child is transitioning from just gaming to more gambling?
So primarily, if a parent does have concerns, we do offer our free parent awareness session. Come and have a look at it. It goes over it in a bit more detail.
Tell us where we can get that right now.
So if you go to our YGAM website, so that's YGAM, that's just a single Y followed by GAM. So it's ygam.org. And you can go and you can look at the Find Help section. You can go to the Parent section. You can book onto any of our training. All of it's free. We're a charity. And so, yeah, parents can go and have a look at that. But I think I will go through some of the key ones.
Yeah, please do.
Fundamentally, it's becoming more secretive about what they're doing. So on their phone, they're becoming preoccupied with it. So potentially giving up on hobbies that they used to really enjoy. They might become more argumentative when asked. And of course, there'll be changes in their money. So if a child starts spending more money on in-game purchases or is constantly talking about wanting to buy virtual items, it could indicate a growing obsession with the game's rewards. Hiding purchases, lying about their activities, it just starts to build a picture that that young person is engaging in behaviours that they know are problematic. If you notice that they're talking about it a lot, maybe talking about winning, really excited about the rare items within the games or achieving in-game goals, that may also show that the child is just overly focused on the rewards associated with the gaming, similar to gambling behavior. And if a child is neglecting other activities, so schoolwork, socializing with their friends in favor of gaming, it might start to indicate an unhealthy attachment.
And then what do parents actually do? Because then they go, oh my God, this is sort of happening. We've seen it. Where do they go and what do they actually practically do? I know they go to your website to find some great stuff. What would be a couple of tips you could give them right now that would help?
So, as I mentioned before, allowing any child to play a new game, research its content, read the reviews, determine whether it includes gambling-like elements, loot boxes, in-game purchases, or whether there's casino-themed activities. So go away and do the research about what's on the game. And I know those things are on our website if you want to find it that way, but a quick Google search and you should be able to find those. Take advantage of parental control features available on gaming consoles, computers, mobile devices. There's apps you can get. There's fantastic software out there that allow that level of control, and they allow you to restrict access to games with gambling elements. They allow you to set time limits or block or monitor in-game purchases. I think, again, it's really, really important to regularly check in on your children's gaming activity. So sit with them while they're playing, ask them about the games they're enjoying and observe their reactions to different game features. I know it sounds really simple, but by that engagement and by that sort of open conversation, you can start to gauge what's going on for that young person, what they find really, really important, and establish that open relationship where they can talk to you without fear of judgment, having those open conversations about the risks associated with gambling-like elements in video games, help them understand that the features can be designed to keep them spending and that they could potentially lead to problematic behaviors. So yeah, key thing is trying to join in, try and get them to open up, talk about it, upskill yourself so that you understand what they're accessing, and being mindful of what's going on for them day to day, which might lead them to want to game for long periods of time or gamble. You know, we talk about within our course, we talk about human motivation theory, and we talk about things that young people and people need to be motivated. And sometimes there are things missing in the individual's life in the real world, which sort of pushes them onto the gaming world. So it's trying to find what's missing.
That's so interesting, that side of it. Angeline talks also in the last week, I think it was, when she says, go and do the game or go and explore it yourself. And then you'll get the gist of it. You know, you'll feel it. Angeline, do you want to explain a bit more about that?
Yeah, actually, it doesn't take very much time just to log into some app or some game and try it out and really get a feel for it. I've done it myself, and it's quite powerful. And another aspect is obviously to see what the possibilities are there, how the children are being drawn, as you described very well. I've also heard another thing that I thought of as you were talking. I've had some parents recommend to go through the rating. All the games all have ratings. And if you actually look at the ratings together with your kids, then you can see all the topics that are covered in the game and talk through it with your kids. That would lead to having those discussions before even starting the game.
The thing that I always say is you are there to be their parent, not their friend. And we do know some of the addictive qualities of this stuff. And we're not trying to poo-poo it and you can't do it, but we are trying to protect them at the same time. So it's about parents stepping up sometimes to be a bit unpopular, knowing that what you're saying around the boundaries is for the benefit and the best thing for your child. And I think that's really important as well, don't you? So the other thing is Common Sense Media. I don't know if you know of them. I always like them. I refer people to go and explore sometimes Common Sense Media to see what they suggest and what they think and what other parents have said around these things too. So you've said an awful lot about resources. Again, tell us where people can go and find out about you. All the work that you do with schools as well and parents and other things. Tell us more about all the different things you offer.
Yeah, gladly. So have a little look on our website again. That's ygam.org. And we basically offer free training to anyone that has influence over young people. So we work directly with schools, colleges, universities. We work with the NHS. We work with police. We work with youth organizations, absolutely anybody that works with young people to make sure that they got the up-to-date and relevant information about what is influencing young people to game, to gamble, and making sure that they can spot those signs of harm and know where to go for help. So we are an education charity, so we are trying to get upstream and we're trying to prevent through early intervention. When somebody is finding it that maybe that young person is having difficulties, there are lots of different organizations. And again, go to the Find Help on our website tab, and it has all the different organizations that you can go and speak to. I think one that often surprises a lot of parents is your GP. They are there to go and speak to, particularly if it's something around gaming and it's something around maybe a period of 12 months or longer. Do involve your GP in the conversation so that they can potentially support you and guide you in the right direction, because the NHS do provide lots of services around gaming, although there are long waiting lists. But as you said, around those PEGI ratings, it's a fantastic idea to go away and look at them, research them, but don't necessarily rely on them solely, because they are the job of the game producer. And sometimes it's not within their interest to make sure that those restrictions are as clear as possible, because they make majority of their revenue through those in-game purchases, through those microtransactions. So it's worth looking at the content as well. As part of our training, we do flag up just how easily we found a rating 3 game and a rating 12 game that simulate poker and slots and gambling mechanisms. It's very easy to stumble across those.
I've learned loads. I hope listeners have found it helpful. Who knew even to go to your GP? It would not be my first port of call. But thank you for the work you do. Thank you for joining us. And people, go and explore. If you are a bit concerned, as we always say on this podcast, go and have a chat with your kids and keep the lines of communication going. So it's balanced. Nothing banned, but everything in balance. And certainly the dangers of that, tipping that gaming into gambling, we really want to prevent that, not have to start sorting it out after it's happened. So thanks for joining us today.
Thanks so much for having me, Sue. I hope it's helped.
Cool. Gosh, that's so interesting, isn't it?
Well, Sue, I think that was absolutely fascinating what Favill just presented to us. And it's just so important to keep in mind this. It's important to know the experts, right, who are really focused just on that. There's another aspect of online games I feel really strongly about, and it's the chat functions of online games. And I'm not sure that all parents are aware of this. I shortly mentioned it before, but it's really important to understand that these are places where predators have figured out this is a place to get our kids. This is a place to get young kids. So any game that has a chat function, first, it's important to find out if you are letting your child use a game with a chat function. And if you do, really try it out, see what kind of language is used there in general, because it's not just the predators. It's not just the spam and the scams. There's sexual predators. Online gaming is a place where they find the children. Bullying is also something. I have not seen this. I've only heard it secondhand, but this makes absolute sense. Bullying, just among each other, even making fun of each other. There's even special terms for it. You know, they really make fun of one of the players because they're not playing well. So this kind of thing. And also inappropriate content can be shared very openly. I just read an article, and we can put it in the show notes, from a mother in Ireland who just by chance looked at her son's computer. He was 12 or 13, and there appeared really, really like inappropriate sexual content, and she had no idea. And then when she spoke to her son about it, he was actually relieved that he could finally talk about it. So the online chat game, it's really important to understand that they're there and how they're used, and also not to share any personal information, real names, real addresses, real schools, because you just never know who's on the other side.
Today's episode of Navigating the Digital Jungle is brought to you in collaboration with World Digital Detox Day, an international movement dedicated to reclaiming our lives from the overwhelming grip of technology. So, are you feeling overwhelmed by screens and technology? Take a break and join millions of people around the world on World Digital Detox Day, because it's the perfect opportunity to unplug, unwind and reconnect with the world around you for your mental health and your family and children's well-being. Join this important movement with over 7.5 million people worldwide and visit worlddigitaldetoxday.com to learn more about becoming involved with the world's largest digital well-being initiative. Start your digital detox journey today to better mental health and well-being for your whole family. Right, well, we've tackled that. So buckle up, here we go. We're going to talk about our next big topic this week, the allure of online pornography. Right, let's address this second major concern. The internet, of course, has made porn more accessible than ever, and many boys encounter it at a very young age, often unintentionally. And of course, as we know, exposure to pornography can be harmful, especially for young boys who are still developing their understanding of relationships and sexuality. It can create unrealistic expectations about sex and about body image, and in some cases lead to addictive behaviours. So I thought I'd address how parents can approach this sensitive topic with their children. I've written about it, it'll be in the show notes, but it's also what I'm going to talk about now. It's important, as we say time and time again, to create an open and non-judgmental environment where children feel comfortable discussing these issues with you. Now, I know it's kind of like, oh, I don't know if I want to talk about that. But it's so important now with kids online. So you've got to start those conversations early about internet safety, about what you can incur and find and discover by mistake online. You can talk to them about what's healthy, what's unhealthy content. And, use age-appropriate language and be very clear about your family's values and your expectations regarding online behaviour. Don't run away. It's too important to leave this aspect to chance. Now, I'll tell you about a major new survey of British school children's attitudes to pornography. It found significant numbers of young people aged between 14 and 18 are watching it frequently. And some of it is becoming very addictive and very sexually explicit content. And I was reading about teachers who are saying they are left to pick up the pieces from the damage pornography causes in schools because there's so much adult material leading to warnings of sexual harming behaviour amongst teenagers in particular. In fact, one head teacher of one school involved in a survey I was reading about said the impact of violent pornography on her pupils is so severe that they have had to use special trainings to respond to the large rise in reports of sexual abuse. So teachers are being trained in this, but not all teachers. And again, for parents, it's not something you necessarily want to raise with your sons or your daughters, but really it's something that's so important because young people were asked in this survey what age they were when they first saw it, and most of them said they were around about 12, but there was some young children when they were playing some games and apps as young as 3 years old. So it's a big problem. I remember having a client come to see me, a young boy I knew very well actually when I was teaching him when he was younger. And at 9, he clicked on something by accident and was exposed to something and he was traumatized. So his parents came to see me because obviously I work with families and parents through my coaching practice, and we worked through and helped him and he felt more confident. But he felt guilty, he felt dirty, he felt shamed. So we need to help our children be prepared for some of this stuff. So I'll talk through now some practical strategies for parents that can protect your sons from these digital dangers. The first thing I'm going to say is establish clear rules and boundaries and screen time and internet use. Secondly, use parental controls to restrict access to inappropriate content and monitor your child's online activity. Again, Tara's not here today, but she always talks about take the tech out of the bedrooms when kids are on their own and encourage participation in offline activities. I'm writing a new book at the moment all around offline activities for young people to develop hobbies and interests that are not naff, but they are balanced in lifestyle. So you have an online life, but you have digital detoxing offline as well, doing interesting things away from screens. But most importantly, my point is maintain open lines of communication and educate your children and educate yourself first about the risks, and then you'll be able to navigate the digital world safely. What do you think, Angeline, around all of that?
I think it's quite unfortunate that the wrong people have figured out that they can reach our children with pornography at a really early age. I was just thinking about that around a week ago for a different reason. Actually, obviously this is an international audience, but in most countries, that's not even legal for children to see adult content, and much less share adult content. And it actually is not so complicated to put filters in, automatic filters on tools, and those automatic filters aren't there. So I'm very frustrated sometimes about the fact that we're not that far yet as a society to protect children more automatically with the tools we have. For example, there was Meta, who a few months ago, they were very proudly announcing their new protections for minors on their platforms. And it was, I don't remember what it was called, but basically it worked that way that their tool recognized that an image had nudity in it. And then before the minor could send it, they had to click on the button and say, "Are you sure you want to send it?" Of course, they're sure they want to send it. I mean, and then it comes in. "Are you sure you want to see this?" "Yes, of course."
Of course, because it's curious. Now you've made me curious.
And I was just like, seriously? How is it a step forward? Because they're just not old enough to understand that. And if we have a tool, I'm sorry I'm getting loud because I feel so strongly about this.
Of course,
if we have a tool that can recognize it's there.
Yes.
And it's against the law, why can't we just ban it? I don't understand. I just asked it the other day and I didn't get an answer. I don't understand it. I understand freedom of speech.
I don't understand it either. Yeah. I don't understand it. Yes, but of course there must be loads of people making loads of money somewhere along the line, because that's what it boils down to, isn't it? And people like you and me doing our best to raise awareness at least and protect our young children from some of these terrible things. And we are pro-tech, but we do need to make sure people know about it. I want to tell the listeners actually about a really good book. If you want to start somewhere, I've got the Sue Atkins Book Club where I've got all sorts of books that I think are helpful. But this one is great. It's called Good Pictures, Bad Pictures, because it offers a starting point for those discussions about online pornography. Everyone feels a bit cringy and a bit awkward, and young children deserve to be armed early against internet dangers. So Good Pictures, Bad Pictures, I think, makes it easy for parents to protect their young kids from around about the age of 3 to 6. Now, you're not going to give them scary stuff, but you're starting gently, age-appropriate messaging so that they learn in turn to run and tell. So if they accidentally are exposed to inappropriate content, because they know they'll feel funny and, scared or something about it, they know to come and talk to you about it. So you can do something, but we need to preempt it. And you're talking about it too. Parental controls, something so where they get round them, but at least put them in and think about ways to try and sort of protect them before they see it.
Exactly. I mean, I feel strongly about, as you said, preparing kids beforehand, empowering them to understand by themselves what the right thing is for them. But obviously, they're just not at an age where they're always going to figure that out. And we have to help them. Parental controls are not always this like big boogie monster that just prevents everything. It actually is protecting them for things they might think they're ready for when they're not. I mean, my daughter's only 8 and she thinks she's ready for a lot more stuff than I think she is. But
of course, I mean, that's natural.
Yeah. Yeah, well, probably the truth is in the middle, usually.
But the dangers here, because also with teenagers as well, they love risk. Their brain is geared to risk taking. So, of course, this is all feeding into that risk. And if they say, do you want to send? They go, oh, I'm curious. What's that? And then you're off into a different dark world.
Also with AI, this also has changed the game in terms of pornography. And again, children and youth are not ready for this without our help, because in multiple countries, I've seen reports of school children who use generative AI tools, deepfakes, to create fake nudes of their classmates and bully them with it in multiple countries. And these are things, obviously, they don't understand what they're doing. There is also non-consensual produced pornography with generative AI. So it's not always what they're watching is something that a consenting adult created. These are all very difficult topics for a youth to understand. As you both said earlier, having a safe space where they can talk about that is really everything.
Because, sex has got to be in context of loving relationships. And I've written around this. I talk about it too. It's not just the one conversation, the birds and the bees thing. It's a constant, as they grow, mature, you talk about it. But they see love and they see sex in a context of loving relationships. Because when you watch porn or you watch AI porn, it gets more and more violent or more extraordinary. And when they're trying then to have real conversations with real girls, outside McDonald's, they're scrabbling about what to say, and they have ridiculous expectations of what their new girlfriend is going to do or be prepared to do. So big conversations, you must have them. Don't be frightened of them. I hope that helps. Let us know how you get on. You can hear we are beside ourselves trying to help, but beside ourselves where big tech don't care. So we've got to wrap our children with a great big hug of care and protection and talk and listen to them. That's it.
It's time for our Family Change segment, where we suggest to you some simple things that you can do to help your family navigate the digital jungle. So grab your digital machetes and let's tackle this together. This one we've mentioned multiple times. It's stay engaged and communicate. So important, especially on the most difficult topics, to take it small pieces at a time. Here's how you can do it effectively. Do regular check-ins. So set time each week to discuss your child's online activities. Ask them about the games that they're playing. We've talked about this already. You don't even have to make it like the big thing at the moment. You can kind of throw it in there sometimes so it seems more natural, and open-ended questions and kind of see where it comes. Sometimes it's a message enough to see if you get a complete block where you didn't get a block before. That could be a first sign, wait, something has changed. And as difficult as it can be, try to be non-judgmental. I personally cannot imagine, I say this a lot, I cannot imagine having to grow up in a situation like this where you get these adult topics so early. So understand that it's not really necessarily their fault if they're engaging in it. So, this non-judgmental attitude will help them open up some more.
Make sure your child understands the reasons why you're putting in set clear boundaries or rules or guidelines, because they need to understand that you're not just being a killjoy or you're not being a fuddy-duddy. You are actually serious. You've done the research or the reading around it. So there are reasons why you're trying to protect them. And that's what a job of a parent is. You're not there to be popular. You're there to protect them. And as we said, use the parental controls. And I always think educate and empower. So if you teach your child about the potential risks online, such as, excessive gaming that we've talked about, exposure to porn, you then equip them with some strategies to navigate these challenges safely. So, I have that in the bonus content as well as everything else. We've given people a steer to different places to go. Common Sense Media is a great place as well, as we talked about YGAM. So, yes. Okay, let's take a breath.
Listener questions.
Received some fantastic questions from our listeners this week. So let's dive in and provide some answers. So here's one. How can I approach the topic of pornography with my son in a way that is open, non-judgmental, and effective in conveying the potential risks and responsible behaviour? Well, I hope we've covered that to a certain extent. But as I said, parents often struggle with how to start the sensitive conversation. And I know it can be challenging, but it is crucial. So here are some of my ideas around doing that. Choose the right time and the right setting. Don't do it when you're rushing off to work or you're trying to catch a bus or the kids are late for a pickup. Choose a quiet, private moment when you won't be interrupted, when you can both make sure that you and your son are relaxed and you're open to a chat and a conversation. I used to call them sort of talk and teach moments. Often, actually, they were in the car driving my son to football training on a Thursday at 6:00. How precise is that? Because I remember sometimes we talk deep and meaningful. Sometimes we talk about the football. Sometimes I'd pass on some big messages. So that would be the quiet moment where I found it quite good because you're driving and looking forward. You're not sort of looking at each other very intently. But be calm and be non-judgmental. We've said that many times. Don't approach this subject with anger or shame or judgment. Your goal here as a parent is to have an open and honest conversation. Don't remind them and instill fear in them and judge them. This is a complex world and it's something we have to navigate together as families. Again, make sure your language is age appropriate. Your child is not only just age right, it's their maturity. Are they mature enough? The younger teens might need more basic information, while the older teens can handle more complex conversations around this complicated subject. So be mindful of the maturity of your child. Sometimes begin by asking open-ended questions to gauge what your son already knows and feels about the topic and the subject. For example, you could say, have you ever heard about pornography? So make sure you choose your moment, not when you're in front of your mother-in-law. What do your friends say about it? Get the conversations kind of going, and hopefully you've got that relationship enough where you can start to chat about it, not lecture. And then you can explain for certain ages what pornography is and acknowledge that kids, I remember we've all been young. We're very curious about that kind of thing, and say that it's normal to have questions about sex and sexuality. And then try and talk to them about the difference between porn and reality. Pornography portraying unrealistic and exaggerated scenarios. That's what we've talked about. And explain how it can distort sex and relationships and body image, which we talked about last week with girls. Talk about the risks, the addiction qualities to it, the unrealistic expectations, and just have that kind of conversation around respect and consent in real life relationships. That's another really important biggie for me about respect. And reinforce the idea that healthy relationships are built on mutual respect and trust and communication. So we come right the way back to real big values that parents pass on to their kids. And then, of course, you've got resources. Go and have a look for yourself or with the kids. Look at some resources you could follow up with. But keep that coming back to it. It's not a one-off conversation. This is a conversation that you will have, not all the time, I hope, but you will come back periodically to check in to see how your son is doing. So I hope you have found that really helpful today.
Now for some top tips.
This is where we share bite-sized nuggets of wisdom, hopefully, to help you navigate the digital jungle more effectively. So what are your tips this week, Angeline?
Well, I feel like we've had a lot of tips this episode,
but
I do have a few to add. We're really in a tip-loaded episode.
We're tip-heavy
one
this
that
week.
Works for me. One that works for me, if all else fails, is just say, if there's anything that you see online that confuses you or disturbs you in some way, know that I'm there to talk to you. This could be enough.
Yeah. It could be.
It's the first, and I have another short one.
Yeah.
Another short one is more than a half sentence, is to remember that community is really important to kids. It's a part of their growth. So if it's normalized, like you were describing, Sue, it will be very difficult maybe sometimes for them to hear you. So just, you can also start the conversation with, I know this would be difficult to be different or have a different viewpoint, but it's important because, so that's another thing this works for me, just to use that kind of language.
Yeah, I love that actually. It just takes it down a notch or two. And so that's our sort of quick tips. There's loads going to be in the show notes, so I won't go labouring on about it. What are you working on this week, Angeline? You've said you've been really busy. What have you been doing?
There's a lot of really fascinating people who are out there trying to help youth on their islands. And this week I've been working with a lot of them to find ways to get the message across in different ways. There's the mothers. I'm still working on new workshops about AI to help parents, and also different ways for cyber crime to get those messages across in engaging ways. So lots of fun stuff going on internationally, which is what we need in the digital world.
And where can people find you? Tell us your website again. It's always in the show notes, but tell us again.
Well, it's datagirlandfriends.com. There's a slash between each word. Or there's my personal website, corvaglia.me. You can find me there. I'm also on Instagram and X. Sometimes I'm there.
I tell you what, you're not on there as much as me. I can tell you that. I am a Twitterholic. We'll call it an Xaholic. I don't know what we call it. But anyway, I love being on there, and I chat about all sorts of things too. But you join us on there too, and you can find us across all social media platforms, and everything you need to know is in our show notes. So listen.
Navigating the Digital Jungle with Sue Atkins and friends.
That's it for this episode. I was kind of psyching up for it really, because they're quite tough subjects that we've addressed today. I hope you found it helpful. Please send in your questions. Please send in, how you found the family change segment and what you think about what we're trying to do. If you've got any nice things to say about us, we'd love it. And like us on some of the platforms so that more people can get to hear of what we're doing. So remember to subscribe, leave us a review, send us in your photos, and tune in next week as we continue our journey through the digital jungle with your friends and family and schools. Get everyone to join in and listen to us, because we're all in this together. So until then, stay safe, have fun, and keep exploring.
Yeah, jungle out there.